of Immortality. You're about to enter a magical world. We invite you to savor the feeling of peace, love, and wisdom as it opens your eyes to your true self, to reality itself. The sessions are designed to uplift you as you access the subtle, eternal spiritual universe that moves within this physical world. To take maximum benefit from this series, we recommend the following important tips. Sit in a quiet place where you can be alone for an hour. We ask you to take this time out and be with yourself with no distractions. Sit with your spine straight, either in a comfortable chair or on the floor. This will ensure that the energy flowing in your body will support what you're hearing. Keep your phones in silent mode and away from you in another room for the whole hour. We encourage you to keep your camera on. Our experience has taught us that other participants will be inspired to see you. We will record these sessions. Only the speakers and not the participants will be recorded. 5 languages are available for translation. To select a language, click on the interpretation button, and then you can opt for Hindi, Spanish, French, Telugu, or Tamil by clicking on one of them. This is our registration link. It is not mandatory, but if you would like to receive the recordings and other information, then do register.
Om Shanti. Welcome to the story of immortality. So today is episode 2, Soul. So now we'll see the program flow, and then our dear Brahma Kumari sister Shireen will be with us, and she'll be introducing our guest speaker for today. Om Shanti.
This program, The Story of Immortality, will enlighten you through readings, visuals, and meditations. We will begin soon with 15 minutes of sharing with a senior teacher, followed by a 5-minute reading from the book. Then Sister Shireen or Sister Dorothy will make a 30-minute presentation interspaced with 2 meditations that unwrap the book. Lastly, for 10 minutes, we will address questions from participants.
Om Shanti, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to our second episode of The Story of Immortality. I'm very happy to be here with you. I cannot think of anything better to do on a Sunday morning for us here than to be with all of you. And so I have the great pleasure of introducing to you our special guest for today. Her name is Sister Kala, Brahma Kumari Sister Kala. She lives in our retreat center in upstate New York in Peace Village. She has been practicing the teachings of the story of immortality for the last 40 years. She's the director of Peace Village, and more than anything else, she is sweet, gentle, and beautiful, beautiful soul. She is actually by profession a doctor. She's a pediatrician. So welcome to our program, Sister Kala. There she is. How have you been today?
Great, wonderful. Like yourself, I don't think I could be in a better place this minute. So thank you for having me, really.
That's wonderful. That's great. So I have a question for you. As you know, today our session is on the soul. And I'm always very curious to hear about people's experiences. And I'm sure everyone listening is very curious to hear about our experiences. So tell us the first time you experienced yourself to be a soul.
Well, I wish I could really pinpoint my finger to that first time I experienced myself as a soul distinctly. But even before that, I just want to share something that happened when about 40 years ago, I walked into a Brahma Kumari center with no knowledge whatsoever of where I'm going, what I'm about to encounter. Nobody has met me yet. All I've done is just enter the space and sitting there quietly. And I think my first feeling was of coming home, feeling so comfortable. I mean, there was nothing externally to make me comfortable, but I was still feeling so comfortable, just sitting in a corner in that little room. And of course, then the lessons and everything pursued after that. As a matter of fact, I know I was not planning to take no lessons. I was just visiting, but this experience made me, look into it further. So in terms of the soul, I, of course, heard about the soul before I could feel myself as the soul. I think it's true for many of us. We hear about the knowledge of the soul. We probably have heard about the soul many times before, right? Without giving it much importance. But in this particular case, and I heard about the soul, what really struck me was, and of course, every lesson always goes hand in hand with a little few minutes of quiet times, meditation time, quote unquote. And what I could remember feeling, first time, I think it was the first time, was distinctly feeling a space inside of me that gave me a very different feeling from what I would have normally felt otherwise. It was almost like strings that were attached to the space inside were being removed, and the connections were not so important anymore of what was going to happen, who said what. So those little details kind of faded away. And what I was able to feel is this inner space. I didn't particularly feel it as a point at that time, but I did feel this very, very beautiful space that was, inside of me. And this space was actually feeling very comfortable, very original. It's as if I could think originally in this space, what I want to think. And so to answer your question, I think this feeling was, I guess, close to feeling that I am a soul. And I realized later on what was happening in my life was that a lot of my feeling and sense of who I am came from the outside, came from people. If people said some nice things, if I could please them, if I could be acknowledged, it felt very good. But as soon as there was a little bit of a threat in that, and I had to become very defensive, or I had to prove myself or something like that. So I never really think that I had felt that part of myself, which I would call original, myself as I am. So it was like these connections and these, threads being cut away. And that, I think, was a very, very big thing. And the other thing I can remember my image, self-image of myself. I remember this very distinctly. It's funny. For those of you who know me, I'm less than 5 feet tall, right? So from very early ages, I didn't feel very good about myself, my body, my self-image, in other words. Of course, would have loved to be taller, whatever. But I remember that one of those days, not too far from the time that I started to meditate with the Brahma Kumaris and began to know about myself as a soul, I think I just finished the class and I was walking the street. And I was not doing anything different, I was not thinking anything different. But as I was walking the street and I was looking down at the floor, all of a sudden the floor seemed so far away and I seemed to be so tall. I felt so tall. And I think that had a lot, I can distinctly remember that, how beautiful to feel tall. So I think that had a lot to do with the way I was thinking about myself, the image that I had created in my mind over the years, how it was so limiting and small and short. And getting to know about the soul all of a sudden not only expanded my inside, my space, but it also kind of made me feel tall. In other words, I felt I was of that stature. In other words, my position or my image of myself really grew in that respect. And I will never forget that. If not for anything else, even for that particular experience, I would have continued with the Brahma Kumari, with the Brahma Kumaris. So those are, and of course, many, many things, many different experiences followed after that. And not to say that, even though I was exploring this inner space more and more, and you would think that, if you're alone inside yourself, wouldn't you feel very lonely? But I remember feeling so comfortable being alone with myself. And it felt very supportive. Somehow I felt there was some kind of a strength, and like almost somebody in my back supporting me, make me feel strong, kind of thing. And so it was not a feeling of loneliness, which many times people would have, and I myself could have had. But I think it was beautiful space. It was a peaceful space. I could think of myself or think of anything in an original way without being influenced by somebody else's way of thinking, without being dependent on the kind of response that I would have to get from somebody, which were all my traits before coming to meditate, as being a soul, that I would be very concerned. A lot of my attention would go to how to please people, for example. A lot of my attention would go to what is the response of so-and-so when I said this or when I did that. And so I found myself releasing a lot of those little threads, as I say. And I guess how I would describe it was that inner freedom, being alone with myself. And yet that freedom gave a lot of feeling of strength and support to do what I have to do in my life. And so that was very,
when you were sharing, I was thinking that, sometimes I remember when I was working in corporate America, some of my bosses used to be so happy when people joined their group. They used to be so pleased and proud. Oh, we have such a talent in our group, and we have such a wonderful person in our group. And I look at all of you beings like yourself, and I think God must be so proud to have you in his team. And there must have been so many experiences you've had to become part of this team, right? And so could you share some that made you change your life completely? I'm so glad you did. And so I'm so glad you came into my life. I really think you're one of the most amazing, sweet, gentle souls. And I always think I should, when I grow up, I should become like Calaban. So, um, so tell us about, share a time when, what is it that made you change? Like you were on a certain path, right? You were professional, I'm sure, planning on getting married and all of those things, and suddenly changed and decided to go, no, I'm going to do this instead with my life.
Well, I mean, you're putting it in a very dramatic way, and I don't think it happened in such a dramatic way for me. Yes, of course, it was dramatic that I was not planning to ever do anything like this, and all of a sudden, I found myself in a environment and being prompted to do the classes. The first thing that happened after my initial experience, I must say, contrary to the fact that I had not really thought of continuing or even starting anything like that. I didn't go to the center with that intention at all. Allowed me to expand that inner space in a very gradual way and in a very gentle way. And so I can vouch for the fact that I did not even think, even have a distant thought that one day I'll be sitting here with, all dressed in white and, a spiritual teacher and this and that. I did not decide that. But it was a gradual progression of events, mostly to do with inner experiences, as I was saying, just finding myself, in my original form, so to speak, that, that I can think the way that I'm the master of my choices, to simply put. In other words, I could make my choices. And of course, you're all going to be hearing about the power of that choice, the power of the intellect that we all have, and the intellect that has been kind of dormant for a long time, and it kind of just took on whatever came, didn't give it too much thought, but all of a sudden that awakening of the intellect, which gives me the power to choose what I want, this moment. And I don't necessarily have to stick with the choices I made 10 years ago, 5 years ago, a year ago even. I could have moved on and I may be ready for something new, something different. So let me be in that space where I can really think original and new and, create, better choices for myself. And this is how my life, I think, progressed. The company that I kept, changed. The place that I lived in changed because I wanted more time and quality for myself and space for myself. So I was able to provide that time and space. And of course, in terms of my professional life too, what really happened was, again, coming from that scientific background of whether this is true, whether it's going to be practical, whether it's going to be helpful, I started implementing some of the practices of what we call here soul consciousness, especially interacting with the patients, with the children. And I found a lot of difference in that too, so in the sense that, it was almost like removing that wall, removing that barrier that exists between the doctor and the patient and the child. And they're screaming and shouting and nervous. So all of a sudden, when I'm saying to myself, I'm a soul and I'm looking at you as a soul, my brother's soul, it's as if that wall just drops, and, they were being so receptive. So that way I can see there were many, not only meditation experiences, but also life experiences, practical experiences in which I found myself that I am gaining control over my future, not only over my future, but even over my present experiences. So I feel that it was gradual, started to be regular in meditation, in spite of the fact that I would be very, tired at the end of the day with all the work and everything, but this was what would energize me. So just imagine going at the end of the day for a class, or, people would tell me, how can you find the energy to do it? I said, this is the energy that makes me go on. This is what energizes me. And that's where I lose my energy sometimes. But even that changed over time. That, you know, when you are in the right consciousness of I am the soul and doing this work, and everything becomes sacred, everything becomes very positive. And so I think I found myself blending or integrating, you know, all parts of my life in a very natural and gradual way, gentle way. So now you can say, of course, it drastically changed my life, but it was not drastic at that moment. It was very gradual, very acceptable, you know, very interesting, and, you know, very enjoyable. So I only did what I, you know, wanted to do. I didn't do anything more. So that's how my life is so different today.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us, Sister Kala. And we will call you back sometime again.
All right. Thank you. And all the best for this wonderful souls on this program. And it takes me back to my time. So I love being with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Chapter 2. The soul is an eternal traveler. I like this new awareness, but it's very slippery and not so easy to shift from body consciousness to soul consciousness. I think I may need some help with this. Am I supposed to just forget my body?
Yours is a very valuable body, and so you must not be distressed by it. Recognize its value and take good care of it. It is through your present body that you recognize the Father, you recognize the Self, and you recognize that time is auspicious. It is in your body that you are able to transform your consciousness.
I am glad you have explained this, because it seems that it is important to understand that the body is valuable and I have to look after it.
I give this advice to souls. Children, be soul conscious. Stop being body conscious. At the moment, souls are unable to go beyond the consciousness of the body and the limitations of the material world. There is now no strength left in souls at all. You, the soul, are the one who makes your body work. Who are you? You are a special soul, a master almighty authority. By remaining aware of your being a master, your subtle servers of the mind, intellect, and sanskaras will be under your control. This is called the stage of a self-sovereign.
I am interested to hear about the interplay between the mind, intellect, and sanskars, these subtle facilities of the soul, and how, by becoming a master of these, I will be able to rule the kingdom of my inner world.
The thinking of your mind is your first power. If your first power is accurate, then your other servers will also do everything accurately. First of all, check to see that your first server, the mind, is a constant companion of the soul, the king, and is constantly following your instructions. The soul requires a very good intellect to understand, to discern, and to decide. The intellect has the ability to discern truth from falsehood and to understand spiritual knowledge from material knowledge. Everything depends on the quality of the intellect. It is said that when the human intellect becomes insolvent, then one is declared as spiritually bankrupt. Sanskaras are the latent impressions within the soul that determine the soul's individual and unique form in terms of character, personality, and features. Sanskaras influence your overall destiny. From the moment you enter the world stage and take a body, your sanskaras are in a constant process of change. Your awareness of your own identity becomes twofold. There is duality in your sanskaras. And eventually, the consciousness of the Atma, the soul, is replaced by the consciousness of the atom, the matter.
Yes, you have given me a lot to think about. I see now that when I am soul conscious, my eye of recognition, my third eye, is open. And I use this third eye to see differently. It's like the invisible is becoming visible. I am beginning to know my true self. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, everyone. Welcome back again after that wonderful reading. So today I'm going to be sharing with you the second part of the soul. One of the things that we mentioned yesterday a little bit, but I want to reiterate today is about the two words, soul consciousness and body consciousness. I want to clarify the concepts, actually 3 words. Actually, there are 6 words, but 3 phrases, soul consciousness, body consciousness, and Om Shanti. So let's first talk about soul consciousness. So soul consciousness is when the soul is aware of itself as a soul. So the soul is aware and the soul knows it's the soul, that is soul conscious. Body conscious is when the soul thinks it's the body. And so remember, the body does not think. The body is just a vehicle. It's an important part, but it's just a vehicle. It does not think. So when we say body conscious, that doesn't mean the body is conscious. No, the soul is conscious of itself as a soul, or the soul thinks it's the body. When the soul thinks it's the body, then it is body conscious. When the soul thinks it's the soul, then it's soul conscious. And further on, we can talk more the different nuances. It's a very deep subject, this whole concept of soul consciousness and body consciousness. And over the weeks, we can talk more about it. But the other thing I want to share with you is this phrase, Om Shanti. So I'm sure some of you who are new to our series or to the Brahma Kumaris, you must be hearing this phrase Om Shanti a lot. And so Om Shanti means, Om means I am a soul, and Shanti means I am peace. And so the soul is saying that I am a soul and I am peace. My original nature is peace. And so the way we use it in the Brahma Kumaris is when we begin something, when we end something, when we don't have anything else to say, we say Om Shanti. Or when we really want to become peaceful, then we say Om Shanti. But I always use this phrase to come into this awareness. I am a soul and I am peace. And so today we will be talking about this whole idea of the soul thinking, right? So the body doesn't think. So when the soul looks at the body, if it's completely aware, then the soul says, I am this body. This is my body. I am a soul and this is my body. That is what the soul says. And so one of the things that is important is to distinguish between the soul and the body. And so the body is totally distinct from the soul. It's like the car and the driver. So they are together. The soul is in this body and the soul is driving this body, but the soul is separate, the distinct and the body is distinct. And the body actually only functions when the soul is present. When the soul is not present, the body does not function. So what is popularly known as death is actually the soul leaves the body. So the soul is the animating force of the body. It makes the body alive. And so once the soul leaves, the body is dead, or death. That is what is called death, is the soul leaving the body. And so each soul, every one of us, all of the 7 or 8 billion people on this planet, we all have distinct personalities. Every soul has a distinct personality. And the other thing, the distinction between soul and body is the body grows smaller or larger, but the soul doesn't. The soul is always a point of light. It's a point of conscient light. And so the body does not grow smaller or larger. The other important aspects we need to understand about the soul is the body has a gender. It has a color, it has a nationality, it has a race, it has all of those things. That's the body, right? But the soul doesn't have any of those. The soul is a point of light, and this is where we are located. So as you can see in the image that is being shown, we are beings of light right here behind the eyes in the forehead. And so the body has all of this. The body has a gender, a nationality, and all of these things. But the soul doesn't. And the soul is actually eternally a being of light. Whatever labels, like nationality, gender, all of that, the labels we give to the body actually come with the body. And then once the soul leaves, it goes with the body. The soul doesn't carry these labels with it. And a few other important things we need to remember about this is that human souls will always enter human bodies, because the soul has what we call sanskaras, which we'll get into it very soon. And these sanskaras are like the seed. And so let's say if you plant a mango seed, you will only get a mango tree. You're not going to get grapes out of a mango seed. In the same way, human soul, also there's seed called sanskaras in us, and those seeds, that is where human soul will take on a human body. And so when we come onto this body, we come into the body, we adopt the body, we play a part. So this part called Shireen is being played. The soul is here and it's being played through this body. And And when I leave, my part changes, my body changes, the name of the body changes, the soul doesn't have a name, the body has a name. So all of those things change. But the most important thing, and this is where we need to remember this, because this is an important meditation experience, and that is the soul is never born and will never die. That is why it is called the story of immortality, because this is your story. It is your story of you, the soul, and you are never born and you never die. And so in the book, The Story of Immortality, we have many, many meditation techniques. And if you unwrap the book, it's amazing meditation techniques, but this is one of those basic meditation techniques which sounds so simple, but it's very profound when you practice and experience it. That I, the soul, am never born and I will never die. And so remember, I was saying that the soul is in here as a driver. And so let's say I, the soul, let's say as a person, I decide to, as a human being, I decide to go on a road trip. I decide to go on a 5,000-mile road trip. And on the road trip, I take my car. And in that car, the driver is there and the car is there. And after I travel the 5,000 miles, someone comes and asks the car, how was your trip? Will the soul understand? No. I'm sorry, will the vehicle understand? If you ask the question to the vehicle, oh, how was your trip? No. The person answering the question will be the driver. And so in the same way, the soul is the thinking, feeling being, and the soul does everything through this vehicle, through this car. The soul, this car, which we call body, right? The soul does everything. And so the body has senses, which helps us facilitate, like I see through my eyes, I listen through my ears, I taste through my tongue. So the body is experiencing all of these things. The soul is experiencing all of these things, and I'm experiencing all of these things through the body, because the soul is performing actions through these senses. And at night, when we go to sleep, the soul becomes detached from the senses, detached from the body, and that is what is called sleep. So soul is performing actions through the day, and once it's done, it's done. It goes to sleep. And I want to go a little deeper into this aspect of the soul and the senses. And so when I see through my eyes, when the soul, I, the soul, when I say I, the soul, see through these eyes, what's happening? I am seeing through these eyes, and the eyes, and it's the same way with all the other senses, the eyes are helping me see the physical world. So from eyes, the message is going to my brain, and from the brain, it goes to the soul. So the brain, again, is part of the physical body, and the soul is a metaphysical being in the body. But the soul is the one experiencing it, even though the brain facilitates. It's like the engine of the car. Without an engine, you can't go anywhere. So without the brain, nothing happens. But the engine just facilitates, but the engine doesn't really experience. The driver is the one experiencing. So I'm the driver. I taste through this mouth, I see through these eyes. All of this is happening through my senses. And also the soul is the one saying, I'm ill, I'm unhappy, I'm sad, I'm depressed. The soul is the one feeling these things. Another important, you could say, meditation technique. And right after this, we will do a meditation for 5 minutes. One of the important meditation techniques is to be a trustee. And a trustee is like a steward, right? You are entrusted whether it is the body you're entrusted with, whether it is the sense organs you're entrusted with, whatever it is, whether you are entrusted with things, material things, all of that, right? When I shift my awareness and say, let's say, if I think I own this computer and my consciousness is not very good, then I might destroy this computer. But when I think that this computer is given in trust to me from a higher power, from God, it has been entrusted to me, then I will take care of it better. I will use it in the right way. And so in the same way, the soul, you could say the body is entrusted to us. So I am a trustee. And so this is another important meditation technique. And these meditation techniques, I want you to understand them very simple. They need a shift in awareness. Slowly you shift from I'm a body, or I'm this gender, or I'm this nationality, or I'm this to I'm a soul, and this body has all of these labels. I'm a soul, and this body is entrusted to me. So there is a shift in consciousness, there's a shift in awareness, and a lot of things happen when that shift in awareness happens. And so, in the Bible verse, I think it's Ecclesiastic or something, where it says, from dust I shall come and at dust I shall return. That is actually said of the body. It is not said of the soul. Remember this again and again. The reason I'm stressing this again and again is it is the source, it's the deep seed source of our anxiety. The seed of our anxiety really is when we think we are mortal souls, but we are actually immortal souls. And so the soul never dies. And the other thing which we need to remember is I'm a guest. And I will do a meditation on being a guest. And so let's first talk about this. So the soul as a guest, right? So there are two concepts here, two awareness. One is I'm a guest in this body. And the second one, I'm a guest in this world. And so a guest, a good guest, is when a guest comes to someone's house, what happens? The guest knows that it's not permanent, that they're here temporarily visiting, and once they leave, they are very loving and detached while they are visiting, but once they leave, they're detached, right? While they're here, they're loving. It's the same with the body. We are loving to the body is a valuable body, but we have to stay detached from it. And when we become aware of this slight shift in awareness, I, the soul, am a guest in this body, and I, the soul, am a guest in this world. That shift in consciousness helps us really so many things. Our senses, the senses come under our control. We have self-mastery because of that. We experience peace because of this. So many things happen because of that shift in awareness. Because remember, there are many awarenesses that we can have. This is a seed awareness. The soul is a seed awareness, and then the soul as a guest in this body is a seed awareness. And this seed awareness gives birth to a lot of beautiful fruit, a lot of sweet tasting fruit like peace and love and detachment and cleanliness and simplicity and compassion, and all of those things take birth because of this one shift in awareness. So I was mentioning that the body is valuable, right? The body is actually very valuable. Without the body, I keep talking about the soul. In the Brahma Kumaris, we keep talking about the soul, but we don't talk about the body that much. But we understand the value of this body. Because through this body, I can shift my awareness. Through this body, I can change my consciousness. And so imagine the value of this body. And so the transformation of consciousness, our personal transformation, happens through this body. So the soul and the body have a symbiotic relationship with each other. So we need to understand that it is distinct, that it's not the same, but we have a relationship with it, and it's a very valuable body. So let's have a few minutes of meditation. Like I said before, soul consciousness is an ocean of beautiful experiences. And right now, we will shift our awareness into being a guest. Breathe in and out deeply. I want you to sit up straight, no distractions, and keep your eyes open. Gently rest your eyes somewhere. You can blink a few times. You don't need to stare, but keep your eyes open. Because we want to shift our awareness while keeping our eyes open. Because then we can do this anywhere, anytime, if we practice now. So again, take a deep breath in and out and relax. And very gently turn your attention inward. And see yourself as a luminous star in your forehead, in the center of your forehead, as this beautiful pulsating star. Just visualize a pulsating star. And then accept with your heart that I am the star. I am a luminous being of light. I am immortal. I'm never born and I never die. The body comes into the cycle of birth and death. But I, the soul, am eternal, will always be. And in this awareness, I come into a relationship with this body, a loving and detached relationship of being a guest in this body. Again, see yourself as a soul, in your forehead as a shimmering star, and you're a guest in that body. You're visiting temporarily. The body has a lifespan, maybe 100 years, maybe 80 years, whatever the lifespan. Once the lifespan is over, you, the guest, leave the body. And because of your awareness of being a guest, there is no sorrow, there is grace and beauty and mastery. You feel you're a master over the self. And with this powerful thought of being a guest, come back to here and now. Om Shanti, I am peace. Om Shanti, everyone. So I hope you had a good experience of that meditation. Like I was sharing in the book, we have many, many techniques like this. And these are different techniques of meditation. Immortal, eternal, guest, the soul and the senses, all of these are different meditation techniques. And each technique can be explored. And that's your homework, actually. For the next week, I want you to explore this. Explore this concept. Just keep going back. Listen to the meditation. Listen to the slideshow again, and keep going back and keep reminding yourself again and again. I am a soul. I'm a guest. I'm a guest in this body. I'm a guest in this world. I'm visiting. And when time's up, I leave with no problem. So we have another short presentation now. So we have three faculties. The soul has three faculties. So the body has eyes and organs, right? Senses, the eyes and the ears and the nose and all of that. That's the sense organs of the body. The soul also, the metaphysical soul, has metaphysical faculties. And we call these metaphysical faculties mind, intellect, and sanskaras or impressions. And I will explain further detail about each of them. And so the function of the mind is that the mind is where thoughts arise. So you could say you create thoughts in the mind. And then the intellect is where you discern the thoughts and you decide to bring it into action. And once you bring it into action, sanskaras are the impressions that are created when you perform actions. So actions could even be words. So words and anything that you do with your sense organs, right? With your hands, your feet, your mouth, whatever it is. All of that, they are actions. And so the mind creates thoughts. The intellect is, so in Hindi, it's man, buddhi, and sanskaras. Man is the mind, buddhi is the intellect, and impressions are the sanskaras. And so the mind creates the thoughts, the intellect understands and decides on a course of action, and sanskaras are imprints that happen on the soul once you perform actions. And so the question we need to ask ourselves, actually there's only one question we can ask ourselves anytime, right? You're going through a problem with someone, ask yourself, who am I? You are being cut off in traffic and you want to yell at someone, ask yourself, who am I? And so the answer is, who are you? You are a special, special soul. You are the one with all spiritual powers. You are the master of the body. And just remember, these are all awarenesses. Just a shift in awareness, that's all it takes. Don't have doubts. Oh, I'm not a special soul. I'm not a master of the body. No. This is not whether you believe it or not. This is a shift in awareness. Just like, how do you know you're in a room? Let's say you're sleeping and somebody transported you somewhere. How would you know? You wake up and you look around and you think, oh, I'm somewhere else, right? It's the same way. All you had to do was wake up and be aware that you're somewhere else. In the same way, spiritually wake up and you remember you're a soul. You're a special soul. You remember that you, the soul, have special spiritual powers. Just by that shift in awareness, you receive these powers. You remember that you are a master of that body. You're the master of these physical senses. And you remember this awareness that because I'm a master of the body, because I'm a soul, I'm a special soul, I have spiritual powers, my subtle faculties of the mind, intellect, and impressions, they will come under your control. So what does that mean? Let's talk about it now. And so to get them under your control, you just have to keep reminding yourself again and again, I'm a master of these subtle spiritual faculties that are within the soul. I'm a master of them. And the reason I wanted to show you this image is that is where you're located. See that point of light? That is where you are, right? And so this image really helps you gain mastery, because meditation is two things. Meditation is visual and understanding. So when we combine visualization and understanding, then we are meditating. Don't think, oh, am I meditating? Am I not meditating? No. I'm meditating if I'm able to visualize and if I understand. All of us can do that, right? We can all visualize and we can all understand. So we're all meditating. And so the visualization, this image is important because the soul, you see that blue dot, that white light there, that is you, the soul, and inside that is where you are located. And when you do that, then you have mastery over the mind, intellect, and impressions. And let's talk about the mind. What is the mind? So the mind is where you create thoughts. The mind is where you have emotions. The mind is where you have, it's like the screen of the soul, right? And that is the mind. And then the intellect is where you discern, where you understand, where you reason. All of those is the discerning of the intellect. And then we have the impressions, which are the memories, which are habits, which are personality. That is the impression. So the mind creates thoughts, emotions, desires. That's the mind, function of the mind. And then it goes into the intellect. It's a loop. It goes into the intellect. The intellect discerns whatever the mind is doing and discerns. and, understands and reasons and performs an action, and that action becomes a impression or a sanskara or a personality or a habit or anything. All of those are impressions. Memory, it becomes a memory. All of those are impressions. So the mind, power of the mind. So all three are very important. So I'll talk about the mind and I say the mind is really, really important. Then I'll talk about the intellect and say the intellect is really, really important, because all three are important. Anyway, now it's the mind. The mind is absolutely important to understand. The mind is the creator of thoughts. So the thinking, when you're thinking, whether it's an idea, whether it's an image, whatever it is, right? Whether it's a word, all of that thinking, that is happening in the mind. And it is your first power. And if that is accurate, right? It's the basis of everything. If that is accurate, if that is right, then everything will be right. And so what happens is, the other word I want to introduce here is Maya, or a spiritual illusion. I'm not talking about a physical illusion, spiritual illusion. Spiritual illusion could be ignorance. I don't understand. I'm thinking from the vices, all of that, right? Instead of thinking from the soul as a pure soul, I'm thinking, I want something, I'm greedy, I have attachment, all of that. All of those things cause Maya or illusion. And so if people say peace of mind, right? Everyone wants peace of mind. What does that mean? That means that I have to generate in my mind pure thoughts of the original self, thoughts of who I am as a soul. When I generate that, I am a soul, I'm in this body, I'm a guest. When I generate these kinds of thoughts, then I have peace of mind. That is when the mind becomes peaceful. If the mind is thinking through Maya or illusion or the vices or any of those things, the mind is not peaceful. So you can't have Maya, the mind thinking through Maya and the mind being peaceful. No, you have to think of your original self, the soul, then the mind becomes peaceful. And so there are two kinds of thoughts. The first kind of thought is waste thoughts. Actually, there are many kinds of thoughts, but today we'll just talk about wasteful thoughts and powerful thoughts. So wasteful thoughts are thoughts that are irrational. You're thinking very fast, you're depressed, you don't know what's going on, and you don't have any control over your thoughts. Those are wasteful thoughts. And powerful thoughts are thoughts of the original self. And I want to introduce two words here at this point. In Hindi, the words are Adi and Anadi. Adi means original. Originally, what it was, right? Let's say the original nature of something. So let's say you get a brand new car, right? Originally, it was brand new and everything was working. And then as time went on, it got bad. So in the same way, there is a Adi nature of the soul, the original nature of the soul. And the original nature of the soul is pure and peace and love and wisdom and all of those things. And the Anadi is beyond the original. And I'll talk about the Anadi state next week. So this week we'll only talk about the Adi, the original state. The Anadi, which is beyond, or the eternal state, we'll talk about it later. So now let's talk about the power of the intellect. So the intellect understands and discerns and decides, right? It discerns what is going on and it follows through with an action. And you could say that the mind is where the thoughts are generated. And it's like the seed, right, is the mind. It's this, the thoughts are being generated in the mind, but the intellect is where you water the seed, and you have to water the seed with wisdom. You have to see, is this thought that I have worthy of watering, taking it further, or is it thought based on one of the vices like anger or greed or laziness or arrogance? Is it one of those thoughts? Then I don't use it, I discard it. And so the power of the intellect, everything depends actually on the intellect, because the intellect decides the course of action. And the intellect is that which you can make a golden vessel if you water the seeds of your thoughts properly with the wisdom of spiritual knowledge. And the intellect is the one that you can distinguish between spiritual and material. What is good for you, what is not good for you. The voice of conscience. And so the real growth, right? People always say, are you progressing? Are you growing? In spirituality, real growth is when the intellect becomes very pure. The intellect really, it's full of wisdom, it's full of understanding, it can reason, it can sustain seeds of pure thoughts. So we have to feed the mind a diet of pure thoughts, but the intellect has to sustain that diet. The intellect has to be able to do that. And so that is the function of the intellect. And this, my dear friends, really are the secrets of the whole of humanity. This is what decides what happens to you, the soul. And so we were talking about sanskaras, right? Sanskaras are imprints, impressions, all of those memories, personality, habits, all of these are sanskaras. And so when I perform an action, it gets imprinted with sanskaras. And these sanskaras, you have several kinds of sanskaras, but one of them is original sanskaras and one are acquired sanskaras. So originally what we were and acquired what we have become. And so what we were originally are the sanskaras. They are pure, peaceful, wise, and loving. And these original sanskaras are soul conscious sanskaras. The acquired sanskaras are body conscious. So the soul is acquiring this body consciousness. I'm a body, I'm a label, I'm this age, I'm this gender, I'm this nationality. I am, American, I am French, I am whatever, right? All of those are body conscious sanskaras that are acquired over time. And so what happens is, it's almost like that original Adi sanskaras are our true identity. And we have covered that true identity with layers and layers and layers of masks. One mask is age, one mask is gender, one mask is I'm beautiful, ugly, I'm good at this, I'm not good at this, I'm American, I'm not American, I support this political party and I don't support that political party. All of these layers of life after life after life, these masks have covered our true original identity. And so the whole story of immortality is about learning of our true worth and self-respect, our true original identity, where all the layers of the mass are gone. And I live my life through and using my original sanskaras. That is the crux of the matter. I have to live my life using my original sanskaras. And so let's have a few minutes of meditation, right? And in this meditation, there's one thing I want you to remember, and that is that you are originally a pure soul. You have mastery, you have spiritual powers, and they are your inheritance. So very briefly, let's sit back, relax again, put your spine straight. Gently relax your gaze at some point in front of you. Keep your eyes open and become aware of yourself as this luminous being animating this body. Use the visual in front of you as a guide. And very gently drop into your awareness, drop into being the original soul with original sanskaras of love and purity and peace and wisdom. And in that awareness, remember your faculties of mind, intellect, and sanskaras. And understand that in your original state, you had mastery over these. Mastery over love. Whenever you wanted love, you could experience love. And you could give love. Mastery over your mind. You had wisdom, and originally you were pure and wise and peaceful. Just take a few moments now and keep reminding yourself of this. I am a soul. I am light. I am peace. I am a soul. I am light. I am peace. One last time. I am a soul. I am light. I am peace. And with that thought, come to here and now. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you, Sister Shireen. That was wonderful experience. And now I would like to invite whoever would like to ask questions, you can put in chat to the host and we will address those questions. Our presenters will be with you, Sister Shireen and Sister Dorothy, and they'll be able to answer your questions for next 10 minutes. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, Sister Dorothy.
Om Shanti, everyone. Shireen, thank you for such a lovely, rich presentation with so much clarity. Really, I'm sure everyone has benefited from this. So we do have some questions. Could you please explain the importance of open eye meditation, or we should do the closed eye meditation? Are they both
That's
equally?
a very good question, and I'm glad they asked it because it's my favorite thing to explain.
Mine too.
Why people should keep their eyes open. So several things, right? Remember, I said for us, meditation is visualization and understanding. Meditation does not mean that you're sitting in a room in dimmed lights and with soft music, all of that. All of that is there. They are just additional peripheries that are going on. But actually, meditation itself is your visualizing and your understanding. And you want to be able to do this everywhere, all the time, anytime. And so if your boss is yelling at you, you can do this. You're driving on the road, you can do this. Whatever it is, you can do this. When your spouse is yelling at you, you can do this. And so you want to be able to do this. You want to be able to experience peace when you really need it. And so that is why we recommend that you practice. All of you are really smart. I'm sure if you practice a little bit, you'll be able to do this at no time. Very soon, wherever you are, you'll be meditating.
Thank you, Shireen. I have another question here. I like the idea about feeding the mind the diet of pure thoughts, but the world is so negative out there. There's so much negativity. Are we putting our heads in the sand?
Another good question, huh? What I've noticed is meditation, or this, what we call meditation, or this diet, or this Raj Yoga meditation, is feeding a diet of pure thoughts. What happens is you are aware. You're aware of what's happening in the world, but the world, you're not emotionally invested in it so that you get upset, you get depressed, you do all of those things. Just remember that only when we are strong can we help someone else. So the whole transformation of the world actually rests on self-transformation, which, because of pressed for time, I didn't talk too much about that. But the whole of everything of the world rests on you transforming your awareness from body consciousness to soul consciousness. And feeding your mind a diet of pure thoughts is that. And so the whole world is resting on your thing, and you want to be able to do that. And so it's like you're helping yourself before you help the world. Yes, the world is not doing that great right now, but just remember, when you're flying, they say, put the mask on you first before you put it on anyone else. So yes, we need to look at the world, but right now you need to take care of yourself.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you for that answer as well. So the whole of my life, I thought I had a soul. Can you give us an easy method to flip-flop my thinking so I can experience who I am?
You know what these questions tell us? That all of you were listening and all of you being very sincere. That is wonderful, wonderful news. It's just practice. There's a 3-step formula. Whenever people ask me a question like this, I say there's a 3-step formula. You know what the 3-step formula is? First step, practice. You know what the second step is? Practice. You know what the third step is? Practice. So that's the 3-step formula. Practice, practice, practice. That's the easiest way. So you slowly have to start seeing yourself as a soul. Use that visual of the visual I showed you. Start seeing yourself right there. And then you start going back to it. Keep going back to it again and again and again and again. It has to be very simple. Make it very simple. Don't complicate it. Very simple. Even if it's one sentence, it's fine.
Okay. Here's another question, Shireen, sister. If the soul stays the same after death and gives us our personality, why does our personality change after death?
The personality doesn't really change. It's like sanskaras, right? These sanskaras, you could say, are you have latent, you perform an action. Let's say you have 80 years of life, and in 80 years of life, in 80 years of time, you perform certain sanskaras and you acquired those sanskaras. And those sanskaras go with you. And also when you take on another body, then depending on the body, right? So let's say I'm here right now, Indian female, then next birth I go and I'm born as a male in Japan. So the nationality, the race, there is a set of sanskaras that come with my upbringing that is going on also, because I'm in a totally different environment. The culture in India is very different. The culture in Japan is very different. It's a different gender. My outlook is different. So all of those things shape our sanskaras. It's not just, so when we say when things are happening, it's not just what is that, not what we come into the birth with, but everything that happens to us also shapes our sanskaras.
Okay, here's another question, especially for parents and children, parents who have children. How to invoke the quality of giving and giving in kids, and instead of taking and taking, being satisfied, never being satisfied, wanting more and more.
I didn't totally understand the question, but I'll try to. If
Should I repeat it again? I'll rephrase.
No. I'm thinking
Okay.
that the taking is that you are expecting from the kid.
No, it's trying to bring that awareness in the kids of giving and giving,
Okay.
rather than them always wanting more and wanting more. You know how kids want
Yes,
the Nike, they want the iPhone, they want the
right. The seeds have to change. So the seed of them, instead of focusing on one particular sanskara, oh, they shouldn't ask for these things or that, instead of focusing on that, just make them understand who they are and help them meditate a lot on who they are, of them being a soul and all of those things. So that seed change will help them change the rest of the sanskaras.
I have another good question, I think. Should we think about the light, the soul, while meditating? Or should we think nothing and keep the mind blank while meditating?
So, Dorothy-Ben, you know very well that you cannot keep the mind blank.
Well, it's not my question, it's theirs.
I know, but I wanted you to.
But I think it's a question that maybe souls might
Yes,
already have been
you
programmed.
cannot blank the mind. You absolutely cannot blank the mind. Whenever, even if you're sleeping, the mind is thinking, it's dreaming. Where is it possible to blank the mind? Even someone who says, go focus on, I remember one time going to a meditation and they said, go focus, we are going to blank the mind and you're going to focus on that candle. And I'm thinking, that's not blanking the mind. I'm focusing on a candle. And so you can't blank the mind. So the best thing you can do to the mind is feed it a diet of pure thoughts. Feed it a diet of powerful thoughts of your original self. Once you feed it a diet of who you are in your original self, then everything else will fall away.
Okay, and here's one more question. Can you elaborate on being cautious with the way we use our senses? What does that mean?
That we don't overuse. We don't overuse, like we don't overuse our eyes and, look at dirty things. We don't overuse our taste and eat too much. We don't overuse our ears or, our body, all of these things, right? We use it properly for the right things, for elevated things. And I think this should be our last question now. We're getting late.
Okay, I think so. So it's been wonderful again, and a wonderful, enriching day. And thank you for the rich Sunday. What a way to start Sunday morning. Thank you, Shireen.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been my pleasure to be with all of you, and we are so honored you could join us. Om Shanti.
And so I think we'll have some moments of silence and finish our program. Thank you all. See you next week.